If you struggle with shyness or social anxiety, check out our free No BS training course with actual useful advice you can do from home. None of that just get out there nonsense. The link is in the description below. For now, let's get to today's question.
The question, if autistic people didn't feel social anxiety, would they get banned more? The exact definition of banned in this question is a little vague, so I've taken it to mean both socially excluded and removed from social institutions, this one meaning things like expulsion from school and getting fired. Autism, social anxiety, and fitting in. Social anxiety can be a double-edged sword for autistic people, especially since it's usually developed as a coping mechanism to minimize bullying. Remove it, and you get someone who attracts more attention in general than they did standing quietly in the corner. More attention means more chance at developing friendships, but it also means more chance at attracting bullies. Depending on the mannerisms of the individual and those of the people around, this is a risk that can pay off, or end, horribly. As younger kids, about 8 and under, social mistakes are not just more common among all children, but also slip by unnoticed sometimes because little kids aren't as aware of others' mistakes. Not to mention that they're more likely to still play with anyone in the class than they will be later on. Social anxiety has no place in the safest time to make mistakes that will only make things worse both short-term and long-term. After about this point, social anxiety starts to really develop in autistic children because their neurotypical peers have more complex social expectations that are easily broken. They also start dividing into social groups that will become more and more rigid. Every passing year out of group play becomes less and less common. With less benefits and more risk for the same behavior, social anxiety starts to become the safer choice, and a lot of us with ASD will develop it to some extent by our early teens for this reason. Autism, social anxiety, and schools. When it comes to institutions, how those of us with ASD fit in with others our age really plays into how we'll integrate into schools. In general, we're less likely to get in trouble with social anxiety because we don't draw attention or interact with others as much. The only exceptions to this rule are in the case of bullying. If the bullying includes physical altercations, the child with ASD is more likely to be seen as the aggressor by teachers simply because they don't have as much charisma as their neurotypical bullies. Enough fights, and the child with ASD will be suspended or expelled with a tainted school record. Manipulation, often based around promises of friendship and social acceptance, is a lesser noticed form of bullying that can really get a child with ASD in trouble. Sometimes manipulative bullies just get the target to do something embarrassing for a laugh. But other times, they'll convince a less socially advanced peer into breaking the rules or even committing a crime. Since the peer with ASD is less socially advanced, but is not considered to be younger to adults, the bullies can do this without consequences most of the time. Unfortunately, this type of bullying can't necessarily be avoided. Whether one pursues friendship or not doesn't protect one from these bullies, who tend to have a built-in radar for the kid that isn't quite normal. Then there's false accusations, also unavoidable. This could be through deliberate bullying, in which the bully concocts a lie about a peer out of thin air, or it can be a lie meant to keep the bully from getting in trouble by pinning the blame on an innocent bystander. Either way, children quickly learn that they are seen as more trustworthy and relatable to adults than a child who stands out as different, and ASD puts a target on the backs of children affected. I don't think social anxiety makes a significant difference in whether or not a child with ASD will be in trouble with school. In my experience, I got in trouble way less when I was more socially anxious and reclusive than when I was louder and more boisterous with my peers. But there are many other factors to consider there, including age. My peers were more self-involved in middle school than elementary, and were no longer confined to the school campus where I still hung out. Sex. I went to an all-girls middle school around this time, and girls can be much more subtle. I received a few bitchy remarks every year, but since I didn't understand until years later, I didn't even respond. Boys bullying can be much more obvious, and is more likely to escalate on the spot. Supervision. I still hung out on the playground in middle school, which was pretty close to monitors that held everyone to the same rules for the most part. They seemed to like me, probably because I gave up my swing. When the younger children came out from the lunchroom and was giving pushes, not at all problematic behavior. So I wouldn't say that my personal experiences reflect that of anyone but me. Autism, social anxiety, and employment. People with ASD, anxiety or not, are more likely to be unemployed than employed. So when we get a job, It's rare, and keeping it is even more rare. Social mistakes are bound to happen in the workplace for those of us with ASD, but social anxiety actually causes more social mistakes, because blanking out when a coworker says hello starts to raise questions. Even saying hello backhand, then initiating a topic of conversation that isn't necessarily relevant or interesting to the other person is an improvement. Either way, we're more likely than our neurotypical coworkers to get laid off or fired. Workplaces are not friendly to the autistic, and very few of us will manage to navigate them, anxiety or not. TL, drive, still a bit lengthier than most of its kind. Fitting in at school as a little kid, social anxiety is bad. Fitting in at school as an older kid and teenager, social anxiety is a defense mechanism, usually good but with some drawbacks. Avoiding expulsion at school, social anxiety plays little role, as children with ASD are usually responding to bullies and will likely face different types of bullies either way. Staying employed, social anxiety is bad, but ASD can cause employment instability whether it's there or not. Find more answers and a free audiobook on how to talk to anyone in the description below. No useless advice like just get out there, I mean actual useful advice from people who have really dealt with shyness and social anxiety and overcome it in their own lives.